Michael Faraday's life is one of the greatest testaments in history that failure is not the opposite of success, but the very foundation of it. For his journey was not one of privilege, education, or wealth, but of struggle, rejection, doubt, and perseverance. And yet through those endless storms of adversity, he built a fortune far greater than money, the fortune of discovery that changed the destiny of humanity forever. Born in 1791 in the outskirts of London to a poor blacksmith's family, Michael Faraday grew up in crushing poverty, in a home where survival itself was a daily battle. His father, James Faraday, working as a blacksmith, but suffering from chronic illness that weakened him, leaving the family with barely enough to survive. His mother, Margaret, a strong, devout, selfless woman who tried her best to hold the family together. And young Michael, thin, often sickly, received only the most basic schooling, barely learning to read and write, often mocked by others for his ignorance, his social class, his shabby clothes, and his unpolished manners. Yet, though society looked down upon him as a poor, uneducated boy who would never amount to anything, he carried within him a spark that no ridicule could extinguish, a restless curiosity, a burning hunger to know why the world worked as it did. While other boys played in the streets, Michael stared in wonder at the flicker of candle flames, the patterns of frost on glass, the strange crackle of static when wool rubbed against metal. And though he had no laboratory, no instruments, no library of his own, he searched for scraps of knowledge wherever he could, scavenging newspapers, listening to conversations, asking questions, his mind hungry for answers. But in a society where class divided opportunity, where science was a gentleman's pursuit reserved for the wealthy and educated, Michael seemed destined to remain voiceless, invisible, trapped forever in obscurity. At the age of 14, his family managed to place him as an apprentice to a local bookbinder, George Rebow, a modest tradesman in London. And what looked like the end of ambition became, by a twist of fate, the very beginning of destiny. For though Michael was hired to stitch, cut, and bind the books of others, he discovered within that shop a hidden university, a world of knowledge pressed between covers. And while he bound volumes of science, chemistry, and natural philosophy, he devoured them with a hunger that astonished even his employer. Copying diagrams, memorizing experiments, drawing sketches, filling notebooks with ideas, teaching himself, page by page, night after night, what no school had given him. And thus the poor apprentice began to transform his prison into his classroom. But society, blind to the fire within him, continued to mock. For what chance did a bookbinder's boy have to rise to the ranks of scientists? None, they said. And yet Faraday believed otherwise. Every page he turned became a mentor. Every book he bound a teacher. And slowly, through relentless self-education, he built a foundation of knowledge that would one day shake the world. Though at the time, no one but he believed it. Still, opportunity remained elusive, and rejection dogged him at every step. He longed to enter the halls of science, to witness great experiments, to meet men of learning, but he had no connections, no wealth, no social standing. He wrote letters seeking guidance, knocked on doors of learned societies, begged for entry to lectures, and was dismissed time and again, his ambitions laughed off as the foolish dreams of a common tradesman. Yet he refused to surrender, and his persistence bore fruit when a kind customer at the bindery, seeing his passion, offered him tickets to attend a series of lectures by Sir Humphry Davy, one of the most celebrated chemists of the age, at the Royal Institution. For Faraday, it was as if heaven itself had opened its doors. He sat in those lectures with rapt attention, filling a notebook with detailed notes, diagrams, and reflections, capturing every word of Davy's dazzling demonstrations. He later bound those notes into a book and, with trembling hands, sent it to Davy as a token of admiration and as a desperate plea for opportunity. At first, Davy brushed him aside, seeing only a servant, a commoner, unworthy of science. But fate intervened when Davy, in need of an assistant, remembered the eager young man with meticulous notes and offered him a position, not as a scientist, but as a laboratory assistant, a servant cleaning equipment, preparing chemicals, performing menial tasks. Others mocked him, saying he had achieved nothing more than servitude, but Faraday embraced it as the chance of a lifetime, for in those menial tasks lay his apprenticeship to greatness. He worked tirelessly, observing, absorbing, learning from every experiment, every mistake, every word uttered by those around him. Step by step, mistake by mistake, failure by failure, he grew. Yet his road was still far from smooth. As a low-born assistant, he was often ridiculed by gentlemen scientists, dismissed as a mere servant unworthy of intellectual conversation. He was denied entry to certain gatherings, excluded from circles of influence, made to feel small, and at times his spirit wavered, his confidence nearly shattered. He endured humiliation when Davy's wife treated him with disdain, relegating him to the role of little more than a butler during their travels. He faced setbacks in experiments, failures in trials, rejection of his early ideas. There came a moment when despair nearly overtook him, when he considered giving up the dream of ever being more than a servant in science. But in those dark hours, his inner resolve burned brighter. He reminded himself that his journey had always been uphill, that every closed door was not the end but the beginning of another climb, and he pressed forward slowly but surely, turning each setback into a stepping stone. His persistence began to yield fruit. In time, Faraday conducted experiments of his own, humble at first, but steadily growing in significance. He investigated the properties of gases, the behavior of metals, the mysteries of electricity. Time and again he failed, circuits refusing to close, sparks refusing to leap, apparatus breaking apart, ridicule echoing in the halls. Yet each failure taught him something new, and he never stopped learning. Then came the moment that would alter history. Through relentless trial and error, Faraday discovered the principle of electromagnetic induction, the generation of electricity by motion through a magnetic field. With crude apparatus of wire, magnets, and coils, he demonstrated the foundation of the electric motor and the dynamo, the machines that would one day power the entire world. The poor apprentice who had once been dismissed as ignorant had uncovered the secret that would light the globe. Even then, his humility remained astonishing. Honors were offered, wealth was within reach, but Faraday declined knighthood, preferring to remain plain Mr. Faraday, servant of truth and discovery. He turned down lucrative patents, believing knowledge should belong to humanity, not to profit. Despite invitations from the powerful, he often withdrew to his modest home, content with a simple life, devoted to science, faith, and family. And yet the world could not ignore him any longer. His discoveries laid the foundation for modern electricity, motors, generators, transformers, technologies that power every city, every factory, every home today. He became one of the greatest experimentalists in history, a man whose legacy shines in every light bulb, hums in every generator, flows through every wire. But perhaps his greatest triumph was not in science alone, but in character. He proved that true greatness does not depend on birth, wealth, or privilege, but on persistence, humility, and unshakable faith in one's purpose. From the poverty of a blacksmith's home to the heights of scientific glory, Faraday never lost sight of where he came from. He showed the world that rejection is not the end, but the beginning of another climb, that failure is not defeat, but the raw material of success, and that the only true failure is to stop trying. His life was one long battle against doubt, ridicule, and poverty, and yet from those ashes he rose to change the destiny of mankind. Michael Faraday's story is a living reminder that no dream is too high, no obstacle too great, and no background too humble to stop a determined soul. That persistence can turn a bookbinder's apprentice into a legend, a servant into a master of science, a poor boy into a man whose discoveries electrified the world. His life calls out across the centuries to anyone who has been doubted, dismissed, or forgotten. Do not give up, for within your struggles may lie the seeds of greatness. Within your failures, the blueprint of triumph, and within your rejection, the very foundation of your fortune. His life was one long battle against doubt, ridicule, and poverty, and yet from those ashes he rose to change the destiny of mankind. Michael Faraday's story is a living reminder that no dream is too high, no obstacle too great, and no background too humble to stop a determined soul. That persistence can turn a bookbinder's apprentice into a legend, a servant into a master of science, a poor boy into a man whose discoveries electrified the world. His life calls out across the centuries to anyone who has been doubted, dismissed, or forgotten. Do not give up, for within your struggles may lie the seeds of greatness. Within your failures, the blueprint of triumph, and within your rejection, the very foundation of your fortune.